Welcome to SkysTribe, where I keep my friends and family updated on all things crypto and investing. Here we are, retail investors, the little guys, trying to at least make a buck from these markets with no information whatsoever from anyone, except, some people follow charts and then, some people follow Twitter. But the point is, none of us have insider knowledge of what stocks or projects are going to go up or go down. But if we did, and we made a lot of money buying the stock before it went to the moon, or if we shorted it and made millions of dollars, we will get thrown in jail for insider trading. Meanwhile, all you can hear about nowadays is
an investigation from Business Insider found that 1 in 10 lawmakers violated the Stock Act's disclosure rules, and most fines capped out at $200. And dozens of lawmakers traded in COVID-19 related stocks, just as the pandemic first threatened Western nations.
Poor Martha Stewart. Granted, it was only 5 months in a cushy jail, but half of these congressmen, they're getting away with millions of dollars, getting richer. They talk all this stuff about the little guy trying to just make a little bit of money, but yet the real criminals are the ones that are passing the laws that benefit them and these companies that they're investing in. And nobody's doing anything about it. They talk about it, but they don't do anything about it.
Why is this allowed to happen? And doesn't it just undermine the credibility of Congress and our elected officials?
Yes, and look, this is a recurring issue. It comes in the spring. We talked about it. There were a flurry of proposals in Congress to address it. But really nothing has changed in the last decade since the Stock Act.
The poorest representative in Congress is a millionaire. It just depends how many millions you have. So I pulled up this list, top 25 most paid lawmakers that we have. And the crazy part is that their net worth, 30 million. The jobs that they have, they're cushy jobs that us taxpayers pay them to, help us out, is about 200, 300K a year. That's the average, 200. But they're not really serving us yet. We're paying them with our tax money to make millions from companies that lobby and basically buy them out to either kill bills before they even get on the floor or pass bills that are beneficial for their bottom line.
About that, but what we're seeing here, Jesse, is the same thing that I saw when I was in Congress, is this blatant corruption being exposed in broad daylight. The system is rigged. We have people in positions of power to pass legislation, to enact new policies. They can see, okay, hey, here's the industries or companies that will benefit from this. I'm going to go and make these investments, buy this stock or that stock, or have my husband or wife do it, and then make money in the process.
And then most of these guys, they're going to end up pretty much getting out of, being our lawmakers and go work for the same companies that pay them millions while they were in office. If that's not a corrupt system, I don't know what is. Prior to Obama signing that bill in 2012, there was no law. So insider trading was completely legal.
We were just talking about a Federal Reserve governor, clearly not Congress, but last year we saw members of Congress and the year before. It appeared to have traded on news they got before the pandemic, and the rest of us get left out in the cold. So where do we stand? Because we know John Ossoff is trying to change the law.
We still have a big problem ahead of us here. Members of Congress and senior congressional staff are uniquely positioned to get inside material, non-public information that can affect the stock markets. They go into confidential briefings with government authorities who have been studying what's about to happen to the economy, and they've got that access to inside information that you and I don't have. And many members of Congress actively trade on the stock market. It's unbelievable. But prior to 2012, when we first passed the Stock Act, it was actually legal for members of Congress to do insider trading. What was illegal for you and I and Martha Stewart was perfectly legal for members of Congress.
I want to go over a couple of things. I'm focusing on Pelosi.
Insider just completed a 5-month investigation finding that 49 members of Congress and 182 senior congressional staffers have violated the Stock Act, the insider trading law. I'm wondering if you have any reaction to that, and secondly, should members of Congress and their spouses be banned from trading individual stocks while serving in Congress?
No, I don't know to the second one. We have a responsibility to report in the stock on the stock, but I'm not familiar with that 5-month review. But if people aren't reporting, they should be. Because this is a free market, and we're a free market economy. They should be able to participate in that.
Basically, a representative working for the government since 1987. That's like 35 years. And God only knows how many of these trades her husband and her participated in way before this 2012 Trading Act was passed. But we're going to start off with her because I think she's drawing a lot of heat for everybody else. Nobody tattletales. Nobody's a snitch because snitches get stitches, man. Republicans, Democrats, it don't matter. If you check out this list, you see that they're on the both sides of the aisle are basically making millions. Nancy, she's too much in the public eye. Her spotlight. Because of her, I think a lot of things are coming to light. Before the 2012 act, people have been asking Nancy Pelosi if she ever thought it was a conflict of interest to be investing in companies that she's either passing bills for or killing bills for. And she completely denies it. I have a couple clips to show. In 2008, you'll see from this video, Nancy Pelosi and her husband were given access by Visa to an IPO. The IPO made them at least $1 million. But the funny part is that at the time of them getting access to this IPO, shortly thereafter, a bill that was supposed to take away profits from Visa as a credit card was pretty much dead in the water.
If you were a senator, Steve, and I gave you $10,000 cash, one or both of us is probably going to go to jail. But if I'm a corporate executive and you're a senator, and I give you IPO shares in stock, and over the course of one day, that stock nets you $100,000, that's completely legal.
And former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and her husband had participated in at least 8 IPOs. One of those came in 2008 from Visa, just as a troublesome piece of legislation that would have hurt credit card companies began making its way through the House. Undisturbed by a potential conflict of interest, the Pelosis purchased 5,000 shares of Visa at the initial price of $44. 2 days later, it was trading at $64. The credit card legislation never made it to the floor of the House. Congresswoman Pelosi also declined our request for an interview, but agreed to call on us if we attended her news conference.
Madam Leader, I wanted to ask you why you and your husband, back in March of 2008, accepted and participated in a very large IPO deal from Visa at a time there was major legislation affecting the credit card companies making its way through the House. And did you consider that to be a conflict of interest?
I don't know what your point is of your question. Is there some point that you want to make with that?
Well, I guess what I'm asking is, do you think it's all right for a speaker to accept a very preferential and favorable stock deal?
Well, we didn't.
You participated in the IPO.
Well, I have many
and at the time you were
investments, but
Speaker of the House. You don't think it was a conflict of interest or had the appearance of a conflict of interest?
It only has the appearance if you decide that you're going to have elaborate on a false premise. But it's not true, and that's that.
I don't understand what part's not true.
Yes, sir. That I would act upon an investment. Yes, sir.
Congresswoman Pelosi pointed out that the tough credit card legislation eventually passed, but it was 2 years later and was initiated in the Senate.
That was 2008. Now, 2019, many, not just her, many representatives made millions right before COVID hit. They were buying and they were selling stocks that they knew were either going to profit or dump before COVID came and crashed everything. There's one member that's still being investigated, and you'll have to check out this clip.
One example that has come up has been that members of Congress got briefings in the very early days of COVID suggesting that a pandemic was actually possible. And of course, that is what happened. And there was at least one member of Congress, Senator Richard Burr of North Carolina, who is still under investigation for selling a bunch of stock right around the time he got a briefing on that matter back in 2020.
There were a lot of more millionaires after 2019, which sparked a lot of interest. So then whenever this investigation came out saying that possibly 59 members of Congress were insider trading, Nancy was asked if a bill should be proposed to block representatives from, trading and investing in companies that they, are making laws to regulate. And she completely opposed it. After that happens, people start to find out that her husband has been buying all these stocks with all these companies that benefited from a government bill that was passed.
Speaker Nancy Pelosi. A new report says House Democrats are baffled by Pelosi's effort to stonewall a bill that would ban stock trading for members of Congress. They're allegedly trying to jam Pelosi into letting the bill hit the House floor. But Nancy wants the bill dead. This is coming just after Nancy's husband, Paulie P., hit the jackpot again after buying up shares of a company directly impacted by the new chip bill. Earlier today, when Nancy was asked about her conflict of interest, she angrily walked away. Watch.
Over the course of your career, has your husband ever made a stock purchase or sale based on information he received from you?
No, absolutely not.
And that was the end of the press conference. Guess Fancy Nancy wants us to think it's the luck of the draw that Paulie P just knows how to nail every trade. Drops $1 million into Tesla, Biden miraculously announces a new deal, splashes almost $6 million on Microsoft, government hands them a juicy $10 billion contract, slings 20,000 shares of a chip company called NVIDIA, then the Senate passes a $52 billion chip bill. Paulie P must just be the luckiest man in Napa. Right, Nance?
But the system is rigged, man. And I think it's crazy that the SEC and all of these other bodies of the government that are supposed to be preventing this kind of white-collar crime, how are we supposed to have a fair and balanced executive branch if all of them are all making millions, but yet these same officials that won't investigate these representatives are going after little small fish, or these Coinbase guys that supposedly had insider knowledge of tokens before they dropped, and then the OpenSea people. Like, these are little people. Now all this public criticism is coming out. Meanwhile, you got 59, 60 of our representatives that are supposed to be working for us, getting paid by our tax dollars, scamming the system for millions, and not just one time, since forever. Spread this around. And if you see your representative for your state is on this list, y'all need to start doing some digging and find out who they really working for, because they ain't working for you. Screw the little guy, right? This is a wealth transfer. Anything that the little guy can possibly ever have will never happen because of this corruption. I just gotta say, Nancy Pelosi, apparently she was even named Trader of the Year in 2001. She had better returns on her investments than Warren Buffett. And Warren Buffett is the top of the top. On average, since the 80s, he has averaged a 20% return. Nancy Pelosi has beat Warren Buffett. Nancy Pelosi's portfolio growth has beaten the S&P 500. The S&P 500 is a composition of 500 top companies of all of the United States. But it's not just her. I think she was just the window. She was the window that opened for all of these investigations and all these people to really start to look at what's happening with our government officials, our elected government officials. So check it out. And remember, Warren Buffett since 1965 has made 20% ROI each year. Pelosi, from 2020 to 2022 has had 69%. But there's no insider trading going on here. Nothing to see here. Yeah. You guys are fine. I'm just mad because I want some of this generational wealth money, damn it. Like and subscribe if you like the content, man. Later.